Hi there, thanks for joining us, or me actually. I'm on my plot today, Terry from the Landcat. This is another in our series of short demos of Analyser, where we're focusing on certain parts of the system and giving you some use case examples. And today's one is on specifically platform comparisons. So if you're familiar with Analyser, you'll already know that there's different modules inside it. There's a directory, there's a comparisons module, there's due diligence, insights and help, and lots of great content. They can all be used together, but they also work in their own right. So today, it will be platform comparisons, which I'm going to give you, as I said, some use cases on. And for the next one, we'll focus on MPS comparisons. Everything within Analyser is split between platform and MPS. So that's a platform directory, and that's the MPS directory and so on. Comparisons is the same. So getting on to just focusing into platform comparisons. I have prepared earlier, in true Blue Peter fashion, 3 comparison templates which are based on client segmentation, both part 1 in features and also in pricing comparisons. So it's the top 3 in each one there. What I've done with these is I have reflected client segmentation. So approaching retirement, sophisticated investors and accumulators. So I do have a light touch in legacy ones in here. But the first thing that you do, but I've done these 3 for the sake of today's demonstration. Just to touch quickly on the creating your client segments, this primarily does plug into the due diligence module. Everything you put into here is the starting point and foundation for doing due diligence, because Analyser is built around client segmentation quite deliberately, but it is also applicable and can be read across to doing comparisons. So you create your client segment, put in all the information here, update it. Good top tip from me is make that the first thing you do, because it helps you use Analyser better. Then within the platform comparisons, I've reflected each of those client segments with a pre-populated template, which I can use again and again and again. Once you've set it up, it's there forever unless you actively delete it. So I'll show you 2 things. The one that I've made earlier, then I'll also go and create a new one to show you how to do that and how easy it is. So for the features, we'll do approaching retirement. And in order to start it off, I just went to comparisons and selected the little plus button to create a new one, which I'll show you in a minute, doing it from scratch. But what I did after that was select all, because I decided that for this one I want to look across the whole of the market. Then rather than selecting data points from scratch, which you can do, and if the data points for your, for example, approaching retirement client segment doesn't fit with the ones that are here, you can delete some. This is meant as an aid to make things faster for you in terms of the template functionality, or you can do it from scratch. Lots of our users do it that way. It just depends on what's important to you. It's flexible. And once I've done that, I scroll all the way down to the bottom, have a look, is there anything in here that I might not want to, that's not important to me? So for example, I could deselect one, which will do from here, like so. And then when we see the results, there's 2 ways to interrogate the results. The first one is to see them on screen, which you can see everything side by side. There are a lot of data points in this one, and it's probably the most fully functioned segment that we have because it needs the most functionality. And the second way that you can interrogate it is to download the results. So if you click on the red button in the top right here, it will create an Excel spreadsheet for you, which is pre-populated with all of the data in terms of columns and lines. And you can then format that data or make it into charts or make it into graphs or export it to put into presentations or files or reports or whatever it might be in a really flexible way. And once you've created it, that as well as the template being there forever, so is the Excel spreadsheet. So if I, just to demonstrate that, if I go to the dashboard and go back into comparisons and again go back to platform and do the approaching retirement one, it's taking me to the end screen here, and your spreadsheet is there as you've created the research to be for you to download. So that is from one I've made earlier. Let me just do one also from scratch, and I'll do this assuming that the platform panel is already in place. So if we do, I'll try not to make any typos here, accumulation for my panel, and I begin with that, and let's select Aberdeen. No money has changed hands here. This is a completely random selection. We'll do Fundment, and let's do Quilter, and go next. And if I apply the same template for approaching retirement, it'll apply those same data points. I can do the same thing with adding and removing data points, but the results then obviously come back as just those 3 platforms, which is a different use case where if you want to look at a pre-created comparison that you keep there and reuse it all the time, when your platform panel is in place, it can then reflect what your panel is within your due diligence reports, and you would just create that in comparisons. As you're watching this, you can probably think about 101 or 1,000 and other one use cases for comparisons. It's not just intended for basing it around your client segmentation. It could be one platform versus another. It could be looking specifically at decumulation functionality in depth. It could be looking in the CGT functionality in depth, depending on how you run your business and the sort of stuff that you want to do. We see lots of comparison stuff that we learn from users all the time, and we're always very happy to get tips in from you and share things around. And also we see lots of ways that people, once they've done that, download results and put it into a spreadsheet. If you're good in Excel, which you probably will be because you're an advice professional, you can do all the weird and wonderful things that people who are good in Excel can do. So that is the features comparisons part. The next thing and the last bit is pricing comparisons. I've done the same thing here. So I've reflected the client segmentation for the live segments, those 3. And for this one, I'll go into the one I've created already for accumulation. And that's created in exactly the same way by selecting to do a new comparison. Again, this one is whole of market. So I may want to run this particular segment against all platforms in the market. And in this situation, I'm doing that. I actually put in some extra portfolios myself here. These are the ones that are pre-populated for the segment. But if I was to want to add in another portfolio, I could do that quite easily. And I could also toggle the wrapper mix by perhaps putting a bit less in an ISA and more in a pension. The portfolio, the templates are there as a guide, but you can overwrite them if you want to. Then what I'll get back is a whole of market breakdown on screen. So we can see that. Crucially, one thing that I'll point out is this will reflect your special pricing terms if you have any, as well as the standard sticker point price of each platform in question. And you can download those results not into an Excel file, but into a PDF, which reflects what's on the screen. And again, the PDF will be there forevermore until such a time as you change it. So you don't necessarily need to save down the PDF out of Analyser into somewhere on your drive. You can do that, absolutely, but Analyser will keep it there as a central source. So it'll be there as it was before. That's probably a top tip that people don't necessarily always realise. The final bit I'll do with platforms is I'll do a new one again do accumulation for my panel. And what I would do here is pick whoever my panel is, and I'll change that around this time by, let's do advanced buy and embark. the Morningstar and Transact. So this is my kind of imaginary panel. Again, if I click the accumulators segment, I can put again another portfolio in if I want to, or just leave it at that. Or I should make it clear that you don't need to use a template. You can just unselect templates completely and do your own ones. But then the output will be just for those platforms, because in this use case, you've already done your due diligence, and the due diligence report shows what your platform panel is, why it is, and in a very sort of thorough and defensible way. So you're just using the comparison functionality to look at the panel rather than the whole of the market, which is, I think, is one of the most important points in doing the client suitability part that comes after due diligence, is that you get your panel in place first. When you've done that in a thorough and defensible way, you don't need to check, in this instance, price for all platforms, because you've already deemed that all the rest of the platforms are unsuitable for this particular client segment in this case, and therefore you only need to check those three. If you need to then show why you're only checking those three, you go to the due diligence module, look at your due diligence report, and it's got all your audit trail and reasoning in quite a lot of detail in there. So that again is the use case in segments. You can also I'll not do one here because I'm about to finish up, is you could do this for a particular client. So you could create a pricing comparison for Gene Smith and put Gene's specific portfolio into it in terms of size and the wrapper mix and whether or not she's in a model portfolio and all that stuff that you can run in pricing comparisons. So that's another use case which I'll not show you. And again, you guys can probably think of various more. I'd love to hear the way that you use comparisons in Analyser, so we can keep sharing that home with users via our social channels and everything else. So that now concludes today's short demo. Thanks very much for joining with us and staying until the end, and we'll see you next time for the NPS comparisons one. Cheers.